now it's Chaos's turn.
Spiky bits.
What's up, hobby maniacs? Rob Baer with you again today, and followers of the Dark Gods. It's time to rejoice. Chaos is back. Well, sort of back. Chaos has a new book. It's on par with the Space Marine book-ish. It's a little bit smaller. It's only about 140 pages, I think it was. 135-ish, 150-ish, as opposed to 208. Still has the same amount of stratagems, 24, as Space Marines. 9 psychic power, so hey, there's something there. Yeah, nanny boo-boo. To all those Space Marine players out there, right? Legion traits, of course, on par with chapter traits from Space Marines, and Warlord traits, and everything else you would come to expect from a book of its kind. Now, this isn't our review. This is our tips and tactics, where we break down all the special rules, kind of give you some ideas, go over the points changes, any changes to units, some ideas for like playing with the stuff. We know there's an FAQ out. All troops are now scoring, for lack of a better term. If you have that ability and you go up against something else that has that ability, then it just comes down to how many models are closest to the objectives at that point per the main rule book. But until you get to that point, well, hey, you're probably taking those objectives. Now, there is the stratagem cards, which are the data cards, which are really cool, and we'll use these to kind of review some of the stuff here. But they're going to give you all 24 of the stratagems, plus the 3 bonus stratagems that were in the main rulebook, plus your psychic powers, plus your smite psychic power too. So I actually guess there's 10 of those, right? And if you look at it, this pack is bigger than the Grey Knights pack, so that kind of makes sense, right? That there is way more of those. Now, overall, I don't think there's any new units in here, to be honest. They did put the troops in here, the demonic cult troops for demons. So you've got, like your blue horrors, you got your plague bearers, you got your demonettes, and you got your bloodletters in here in the troop slot. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow you to summon them in using demonic ritual. Now, word bearers have an ability to spend command points of stratagem to maybe not die as quick. You remember, if you're summoning and you got any doubles, your character suffers a mortal wound. If it's any triples, instead suffers D3 wounds. This is different for summoning for Forge Worlds, big baddie demons. So make sure you check those out. But for just the normal stuff that's in this book, that is the case. Now remember, you're using in match play, you're using reinforcement points, right, for this stuff here. So that is important, because you're going to see in the back what a actual battle-forged Chaos Space Marine army is defined as. And you're probably like, well, what the heck? I can never take demons. Well, you can. You just have to leave them as reserve points, you know what I mean? Because they can't physically be in your army, on your army list, because they don't have the proper papers, so to speak, to be in your army list there. So, keywords, Legion. Now, this is very similar to what we saw in the Marine book. You can have a Legion, and it's going to be specific, like Black Legion or something like that. You can't have Thousand Suns, you can't have Death Guard, because they deviate. That's what it says here. So that's a very important thing to remember. It'll also allow you to take other abilities in this book, like, of course, the chapter traits and things. But you can mix and match legions with Mark of Chaos in a way that could create some unique combinations of things, taking psychic powers and stuff. Like, for instance, you could take Legion Iron Warriors, mark it Tzeentch, and take that new Tzeentch psychic power, and that's okay, right? But you just have to kind of remember and kind of follow along the mental flow chart, like making sure that you're doing everything right, because it's very easy to mess this up. It's a little convoluted, and obviously nobody's out there to mislead anybody or anything, but on a tabletop, obviously help any new Chaos players out. And if you are a Chaos player, try to take the time to explain to your opponent like kind of how it works, just so there's no feel badsies or anything, right? If you don't have a Mark of Chaos, that's cool. It's no big deal. You don't have to have one. But you do get specific bonuses if you do. And remember, Psychers cannot have the Khorne, and I think Khorne can't be a specific legion either, and we're going to get into that here in a second as well. They do possess the Death of the False Emperor ability. Every time you roll a hit for a 6-up against an Imperium keyword unit, you get an extra attack with the same weapon. Demonic Ritual, we already covered that. So those are your 4 rules, and then it's going to get into the data sheets themselves. Now, there's 45 data sheets in Chaos, so down from 85, I think it was, in the Space Marine book. So a little bit light on comparable content, but to be honest, I mean, that's just the play of the Chaos player, right? So Abaddon the Spoiler is back. There's a ton of points reductions and changes in this book, and we're going to hit those at the very end, of course. Now, we kind of already knew this was already spoiled to us, but it is new compared to the Index Chaos book right here. So he does have the War Master ability. If you just take Abaddon, you're going to get 2 command points, so that's something to be aware of. Remember, Fabius Bile as well as the Fallen, you can take. Oh, well, you haven't seen that yet, but you're actually going to be able to take them, and they won't go against the restriction to have marks and things in your army to be a Chaos detachment, Chaos Space Marine detachment. You'll see that here in a second. So you got Karn Betrayer, Lucius, Fallen, Cypher, all the normal dudes there. Now, Huron Blackheart has a new ability from this book right here called the Tyrant of Badab. You get 1 command point if you field him in here. And remember, this is by no means an exhaustive list of changes or anything like that. This is just the stuff I noticed at cursory look. It looked like the Defiler also got a few tweaks. You got some additional attacks. Some additional attacks right here. This wasn't what it used to previously be, so a few more attacks, and it went down in points as well. So we all love our Defilers, and hopefully we'll start seeing some more of those on the tabletop here in the near future. Those were the big changes that I noticed, and there's the armory right there. Now, getting into how to make your armies right here, the Lost and the Damned section. Okay, so a Chaos Space Marine detachment is one which includes units with one of these keywords. So you have to be a Legion to be a Chaos Space Marine detachment. So it's a very important distinction to make. Now, you can field a battle-forged army that consists of a Chaos Space Marine detachment, a Chaos Demon detachment, and things like that to get around. I could imagine where some people would want to field Magnus, obviously because he's super strong, right? But there's a specific psychic power in here that you're going to want to cast on him, and it seems like the only way to do that, because you have to have the mark of Tzeentch in order to take this chaos power. He is not in here, so he can't take from this book, so your second best thing is to throw it on a sorcerer or something like that. Sorcerer could theoretically gravitate it out to Magnus, and Magnus could benefit from it because he meets the requirements for it. So this is why we're mentioning this, because you're gonna want to combo probably some stuff, some light chaos units with some, like, you know, perhaps in the future, because it says right here that we know there's a Death Guard book and we know there's a Thousand Sun Legion book coming out, right, in the near future. So you're going to want to combo some of, you know, maybe a Thousand Suns detachment, maybe a Death Guard detachment, and then maybe just a normal Chaos Space Marine detachment. Remember, all these kind of make the ad hoc war bands, you know, and the fluff and everything anyway. So it's not like that's unfluffy or anything to do. You just have to make sure that you're, you know, checking those boxes, filling those requirements in order to do so, right? Abilities, Despoilers of the Galaxy, that's that whole scoring thing, but now every troop has it anyway, so it's kind of moot at this point. Legion traits, those are going to be the ones right over here for specific legions that you can take based on what you choose over here, right? And then the Shadowy Ally thing, that is where you can field Fabius or Fallen in a detachment. They don't have to have the Legion trait. They don't prevent you from taking in a detachment, and they don't gain the Legion trait, but they can still be in it. And the Fallen never benefit from a Legion trait, the end, period, right there. So here's the Legion traits. We've seen these in ad nauseum to this point because they've been teased out a whole lot. Iron Warriors kind of getting the very similar one to the Imperial Fist, where they can reroll fail to wound for rolls and traits when targeting a building. The Renegade chapters, I think, is pretty strong. They can advance and charge in the same turn. That seems good to me. Butcher's Nails also seems pretty good. Can make one additional attack with each of its models in the subsequent fight phase if you make a charge. So you're going to be able to really go super berserker on some people right there for your World Eater guys. Night Lords is also strong. Being able to knock down leaderships for morales right there to a maximum of 3. It's a good thing they capped it, which definitely means it stacks as well, right? Emperor's Children, you're going to get that foe feel no pain that we've come to expect right here. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's the whole going first, choosing a unit to go first. If the enemy has units that are charged or have a similar ability, you alternate. So technically they always fight first unless you initiated a charge during your player turn. And then you have to tic-tac as the normal right there. Alpha Legion, your opponent must subtract 1 to hit rolls from target units with this trait if they are more than 12 inches away. We saw that with the Raven Guard already. And Word Bearers can reroll fail morale tests for units with this trait, which could come in handy pretty well, right? So then we get to the stratagems page. Like I said, there's 24 of these, just like the Space Marine. Now, Chaos Boon isn't as big as it used to be. Remember, it used to go from, what is it, whatever, double ones, so 22 to 66. But it's kind of the same thing if you think about it, because you roll double ones, and that's a 2, right? So it's kind of similar, but kind of a little bit more condensed. But the cool thing about this is, if you roll a double, you automatically get to pick, because you're spending a command point. So that's neat, but you can't choose Spawndom or Demonhood. You're stuck to these right in here. So there's some pretty cool stuff in here, like +1 toughness, +1 wound, all very good things, +1 attack, +1 to character strength, extra 3 inches to move, extra 6 to ranged weapons. So could be some dope stuff. All you have to do is kill a enemy character, vehicle, or monster. Then you roll 2d, spend your command point, roll your 2d6, and booyah, that's what you get. The Demon Shell is interesting. That's going to cause, if you shoot and it hits, target suffers D3 mortal wounds. However, if you miss, your character suffers D3 mortal wounds. So if you just got to do a little bit more damage to coup de grace something out, maybe think about spending a command point on that. But make sure you don't miss, because it might backfire in your face. Gifts of Chaos. Your army can have 1 extra artifact for 1 command point, or 2 for 3 command points, giving you a total of 3. Of course, if you're taking a warlord in general, automatically grants 1 to any character in your army. Besiege the Chaos Gods. Use a stratagem at the start of your turn. Select a unit with mark of chaos that is not dedicated itself. You can immediately dedicate 1 of your chaos units as described on page 116. So you can go from Nurgle to Tzeentch to Khorne to Slaanesh. And you're probably like, why the heck would I ever want to do that? Well, one glaring reason, as far as I can tell, is to combo this with the Chaos Familiar ability over here, stratagem rather, for 1 command point. You do it at the start of your Psychic phase. Select a friendly Heretic Astartes Psyker. That model can replace any of its psychic powers with the power of your choice from the Dark Hereticus. And now it's starting to make sense, but you probably don't 100% understand why. The reason is that you can get the Mark of Tzeentch, Weaver of Fates, which gives you an additional 1 to your invulnerable save, or the Miasma of Pestilence if you have the Mark of Nurgle, which allows you to subtract, or your opponent must subtract 1 from all hit rolls that target any unit within 18 of a Nurgle Heretic Astartes, or a Slaanesh dude right here gets the foe feel no pain, and it can be for a whole squad. So 1 unit within 18 gets the foe feel no pain. So in order to take these, remember, you have to have the mark to go along with it. A mark of Chaos Psyker can use powers from the Dark Hereticus discipline, can replace 1 of its powers with 1 of these right here. And in order to do so, you would have to have the appropriate mark, which would mean that you would have to combo off these. So if you have a specific reason that you need to do something like this, you could switch it out. You could, for just command points, but it's just something to do and something to think about, ways to game things literally in the middle of the game. Blasphemous Machine right here. Until the end of the phase, the vehicle can ignore penalties for moving and firing heavy weapons, for advancing and firing assault weapons right there. So it's kind of like the Machine Spirit, but you got to pay for it, which kind of sucks. I feel like things should have that built in that need it. Well, they do for the most part, but it's, maybe there's a different reason for taking something like that. We just don't know. 1 command point, Veterans of the Lost War, or the Long War, of course. Let's see, you can add 1 to all wound rolls made for this unit until the end of the phase. Adding 1 to wound rolls, re-rolling wound rolls, very, very strong in this game. Sometimes, even stronger than +1 to hit. I feel like it's probably in order of importance. Reroll 1s, add 1 to wound rolls. I would say reroll 1s to hit, reroll all wound rolls, reroll 1 wound rolls, and then your normal +1 to hit, because +1 to hit isn't quite as good as it used to be when there's all those modifiers and stuff out there. So just some ideas right there. Okay, so where are we at? Fury of Khorne. This one's actually pretty good too. Select a Heretic Corn infantry or biker unit that can immediately fight again. That seems pretty dope. That's probably why it's 3 command points. Grandfather's Blessing right here. A Nurgle infantry or biker unit can heal D3 wounds, or you can return a slain model with a single wound from earlier in the game. Endless Cacophony. Use the stratagem at the end of your shooting. A Heretic Astartes infantry or biker unit can immediately shoot again, so very similar to Fury of Khorne up there. The Great Sorcerer. Select a Heretic Astartes Tzeentch Psyker. That Psyker can immediately attempt to manifest 1 additional psychic power this turn. So you kind of see what's going on here. You got extra attacks, extra shots, extra psychic powers, and the Tide of Traitors over here. If you do use the stratagem at the end of your movement phase, you can pick up a unit Chaos Cultist, remove it from the battlefield, and set it up wholly within 6 inches of the edge of the board and more than 9 inches away from enemy models at its full starting strength. So you basically get to recycle a block of cultists. Linebreaker Bombardment, we saw this with the Space Marine book. If you have 3 Vindicators that haven't shot, they can combine their shot into a super shot that's great. Target anywhere within 24, roll a dice for each unit within 3 of it, add 1 to result if you're rolling for something with 10 or more models, but subtract 1 if the unit being rolled for is a character. On a 4, that unit suffers 3d3 mortal wounds, which d3 averages 2, so you're probably looking at what, like 6 on average mortal wounds to each unit on average over everything you damage. So that seems pretty good. Kill shot, again with the Predators, get to add 1 to the wound and damage rolls for the Predators' attacks against monsters or vehicles. Demon Forge. Any demon vehicle is chosen to attack may reroll all failed to hit and wound rolls for that model until the end of the phase. Chaos Familiar, we just talked about that. That allows you to switch out your psychic power. Flak Missile, again, we saw this in Space Marines. You're going to make a single hit roll for this weapon. Add 1 to the roll, and if it hits, target suffers D3 mortal wounds. Obviously going to shoot that at planes. For the most part, I think that's probably the way to go. Iron Warriors. If an Iron Warriors unit loses a wound, roll a D6 for that wound. For each wound lost by this unit for the rest of the phase, on a 6, that wound is not lost. Don't think that's so good, but maybe there's something I'm missing right there. Fire Frenzy, use the stratagem in your shooting just before a Hellbrute shoots. It can now, if it did not move, it can fire all its weapons twice, but all of its weapons must target the nearest visible enemy unit. So if something wanders into a path, well, it might get blasted to pieces. Scorn of Sorcery, this is a good one. This is going to allow your Psyker to manifest a psychic power within 24, or if a Psyker manifests within 24 of a World Eater's unit on a D6 roll of 4 up, the effects are negated. Forward Operatives is pretty cool for the Alpha Legion. At the beginning of the first battle round, but before the first turn begins, unit emerges from its high place, set it up anywhere in the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from any enemy units. What this is going to do is allow you to see where your opponent is placing everything. Then before the game starts, you're going to be able to kind of redeploy based off, or deploy based off of where he's at. So it gives you way more options. Dark Pact is pretty good. This one will prevent you from taking mortal wounds for rolling doubles or triples when you're using a demonic ritual. The Excess of Violence is an Emperor's Children infantry ability here. The unit, anytime a unit attacks in the fight phase, it's infantry. And slays an enemy model can immediately make 1 more hit roll using the same weapon, but bonus attacks cannot themselves generate further attacks. You cannot go infinite. In Midnight Clad, of course, the moniker, well, one of the monikers of the Night Lord's Legion, must subtract 1 from all hit rolls against any target that you apply this to. And Let the Galaxy Burn from the Black Legion. Whenever a Black Legion infantry or biker unit is selected to attack in the shooting or fight phase, you may reroll all hit rolls of 1 for that unit for the rest of the phase. If the unit is Chaos Space Marine Squad, you may instead reroll all failed rolls for it. So, Black Legion better, Chaos Space Marine, not too bad either for 1 command point. Then we come to the Psychic Powers. Now we got 9 of these, which is really sweet. We had 6, well actually we had 3, we expected 6, we got 9. So Infernal Gaze, Prescience, and Warp Time making a return. Of course, Warp Time is that great thing where it allows you to move. You basically get to teleport. Pick a Heretic Astartes unit within 3 of the Psyker. Unit can immediately move as if it were a movement phase, and cannot use Warp Time on a unit that more than once per Psychic phase. So you get that. For Warp Charge 6, it's not too bad to get an extra move, and there's no restriction to charging afterwards right there. Infernal Gaze has a Warp Charge value of 5. If manifested, Select a viable enemy unit within 18 and roll 3 dice. Target suffers 1 mortal wound for each roll of 4 up. Does not have to be the closest thing. So it's a little bit different from Smite, a little bit better, you could almost say. And Prescience, warp charge is 7. If manifested, select a Heretic Astartes unit within 18. You can add 1 to all hit rolls made for that unit until the end of your next psychic phase. So hitting is pretty good in that regard. Then we've got Death Hex, Diabolic Strength, and Gift of Chaos. Now Death Hex is going to negate any invulnerable saves to a unit you target within 12 of the Psyker. Diabolic Strength has a warp charge of 6. Death Hex is 8, so it's a little bit tougher to get off. Select a Heretic Astartes unit within 12 until the start of your next psychic phase. Add 2 to that model's strength characteristic and 1 to its attack. So those are great for all those big baddies out there. At the very least, and that's going to allow you to get, in some cases, that strength characteristic up to the next bracket to be wounding things on 2s and doing some craziness in that regard, because it's all about your average dice roll at that point. Do you want to wound on 3s? Do you want to wound on 2s? I would prefer to wound on 2s, so especially on a lot of things like that. And then Warp Time has we already talked about that. Gift of Chaos has a warp charge of 6. Select a visible enemy unit within 12 of the Psyker. If the result and roll a d6. If the result is greater than the target's toughness, they suffer d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. If it's a character and it's slain, you can add a chaos bone to your army and set it up to 1 inch of the character before it is removed. So what this says is any visible enemy unit within 6 of the Psyker can be targeted by this, regardless if it's a character. And if it is a character, well, it's probably going to suffer at least 5 on average mortal wounds. So this is going to snipe somebody out. The only drawback is it's got a 6-inch range. And we already talked about the Weaver of Fates, +1 invulnerable save. The only restriction is the Tzeentch Heretic Astartes unit, which Magnus the Red is a Tzeentch Heretic Astartes unit. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. Now, technically, you could affect other things too if you wanted to. Like, say, remember, we know where's our let's see here. So like here you've got Berserkers, which are Heretic Astartes and Legion. They have not been marked as World Eaters or something like that, you know what I mean? So this is a Khorne keyword Heretic Astartes unit, because technically they have been marked. There's Tzeentch Heretic Astartes, so like your rubric. So say you want to take, I was trying to find just your normal troops, but it seems to me that you can just take your normal troops and you can say, hey, these normal troops right here are now, I don't know, take them in Tzeentch. And if you know that you're going to try to give them, here we go. So Chaos, mark of Chaos, obviously you would say Tzeentch if you were trying to pull this trick off. You could be Heretic Astartes Legion, you could be Iron Warriors, you know, you could be Alpha Legion, something like that. You know, whatever isn't Death Guard 1,000 Suns, you could still be Khorne, Tzeentch. Well, you can't be Khorne and still be a caster or anything like that, but you kind of get what I'm saying there, and then that would affect them, but that also crosses over to a lot of the other units there. So just keep that in mind. Mark of Miasma and Pestilence, also the same type deal, will only affect Nurgle Heretic Astartes units for that -1. So you don't want to do it if you've already claimed, you know, your other models to a different God of Chaos, right? Same with the Mark of Slaanesh, has to be Slaanesh Heretic Astartes unit. So you want to be careful there that even though you're option selecting to do some craziness using all those command points, that you can physically target what you're trying to do with these Tzeentch powers right here. And then on into the Artifacts of Chaos, a lot more than the Grey Knights. I guess these guys have been around almost as long as the Grey Knights, right? I suppose. But they have a lot more. I don't know what to say about it. So you obviously get one of these if your army is led by a Chaos Space Marine Warlord. Boom, you get one. You spend 1 command point, you get another one. You spend 3 command points, you get 2 more for a total of 3. That's kind of how this works, and then you just kind of pick from there. You've got the Return of the Talisman of Burning Blood. The Baer can advance and charge in the same turn. Furthermore, the Baer can reroll failed charge rolls, which is pretty good. Aya Tzeentch adds 1 to their psychic test when attempting to manifest the Smite psychic power. Always good. Smite is so good in this edition. Slanesh, if you're a Slanesh model army only, you may add 1 to the bear's strength and attack. Plus Cleaver is going to replace a power sword. It's a little bit better on the AP, but the damage goes down to, or you could say down, but it goes to a dedicated 1 right there. It also wounds on a 2-up unless the target is a vehicle, in which case it would roll a wound as normal. So a little bit of clarification there. Axe of Blind Fury, I feel like, is pretty good. If you have the power axe, you can replace it. It's a little bit better, plus 3 strength instead of plus 1, neg 3 AP instead of neg 2, and D3 damage instead of 1. So racketing on up in the power level right there. However, you cannot reroll or modify hit rolls for 1 for attacks made with the Axe of Blind Fury. Instead, these attacks automatically hit a friendly unit within 1. Randomly determine if the unit is hit. If there are more than 1, or there are no within 1, the hit is ignored. So that's kind of cool. If he's just off by himself, whoever takes this is not hitting himself, but it's very Karn the Betrayer-like for sure. Black Mace making a return as well, not quite as good as it used to be. Replaces the Power Maul. It's going to be an extra strength for 3, an extra AP for neg 2, and an extra damage for 2 right here. And roll a d6 each time a model is slain by the Black Mace. On a 6, that model's unit suffers an additional mortal wound at the end of the phase, which I guess is a pretty good 8th edition port over of the Black Mace from the previous book. Murder Sword also returning here, replaces the Power Sword. It's very similar in stats up here. However, you pick one enemy character to be the target. Each attack made with the Murder Sword that hits the selected character automatically inflicts a mortal wound upon the character instead of the normal damage, which seems to be pretty easy to do at a neg 4 of AP. As long as your strength isn't a buster 3, you're probably doing some good work right there. The Eye of Night is a Black Legion model only. The bearer can unleash the power of the Eye of Night once per battle in their shooting phase. When they do so, select a visible vehicle within unit and roll a d6, and on a 2, that unit suffers d3 mortal wound. The Curse of Crozius, the very first Crozius to make its way into the Legions, Astartes, and inevitably become corrupted by the powers of chaos. Word Bearer's model with his Power Maul only. The Cursed Crozius replaces the Bear's Power Maul and has the following ability: reroll all failed wound rolls for this weapon when targeting an Imperium unit, plus 2 strength, neg 2 AP, D3, or excuse me, 3 whole damage right there. And probably one of the better relics in this book, the Flesh Metal Exoskeleton, probably the only useful Iron Warriors rule, unfortunately, for all of us Iron Warriors fans. The Bearer of the Flesh Metal Exoskeleton has a safe characteristic of 2. In addition, this model heals 1 wound at the start of each of your turns. On to the Brass Collar. World Eaters only. The Bearer of the Brass Collar can attempt to deny 1 psychic power in each of the enemy's psychic phases. The model makes a success if he makes a successful deny the witch test. The psyker that was attempting to manifest the power immediately suffers of perils. That seems pretty good. You might take him out with that one. And then the Blade of the Hydra, it's an Alpha Legion model, replaces the Chain Sword. It's going to be plus 1 strength, but neg 2 AP for 2 damage. And they can also make D3 additional attacks with this weapon right here. So, I think, again, I always screw this up and forget to look this weapon up, can make D3 additional attacks with this weapon each time the bear fights. So I feel like that means that, hey, I'm fighting with this weapon, I have, I don't know, say 4 attacks, but I get to make D3 additional, so I roll a D3, maybe I get 1, now I got 5 attacks. I think that's what that means, and not the way the Happy Feet reads from the Night Titan right there. Claws of the Black Hunt. A model equipped with 2 lightning claws can exchange them for this. And this is the following profile: plus 1 strength, neg 3 AP instead of 2, D3 damage instead of 1. And it increases the wielder's attack characteristic by 1. And then the Bliss Giver, also making a return for the Emperor's Children. It's a bolt pistol that replaces the bolt pistol of the bear with the following profile: 6-inch range, assault D3, strength of user, neg 1 AP. And 1 damage. This weapon can be fired within 1 inch of an enemy unit and can target enemy units within 1 friendly units. If an enemy character is wounded by Blitzgiver but not slain, roll a d6 at the end of the phase. On a 6, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. So you might get away, but you might not get away for long from the Blitzgiver here. And then you can see the Warlord's trait page, very similar to normal Imperial Space Marine, or Codex Astartes, whatever you want to call it. You're going to have your 6 normal ones over here, and then you're going to have some chapter or some Legion specific ones over here, and then these special characters, now this is the new part, have to take this, and Cypher can never have a Warlord trait apparently. So if you're fielding Abaddon, he gets first among traders, and that's just it. That's just happening. However, you can pick a Legion Warlord trait from the list below instead of the Warlord trait. But only if your Warlord is from that Legion. So you can always get these, but you can only get these if you're of this specific Legion. So Alpha Legion, if your Warlord is slain, you can immediately select another Alpha Legion character to take up the mantle and generate a Warlord trait for them. Black Legion, the first among traders, is the Death to the False Emperor ability triggers on a 5 up instead of a 6. So if you're fighting Imperium, hey, that one's pretty good. Emperor's Children, stimulated by pain. Add 1 to your Warlord's attack characteristic for each wound he has suffered. If your Warlord heals any wounds, he loses the associated bonus attacks buster. Iron Warriors, friendly Iron Warriors within 6 of your Warlord automatically pass morale. The Night Lords get a little touch of precognition here. During your battle round, you can reroll a single hit roll, wound roll, damage roll, advance roll, charge roll, or saving throw made for your Warlord. Because remember, the Primarch was plagued by the visions. Might not even be actually dead if you read the fluff in here from that fateful encounter with the assassin all those years ago. Rereading it, I'm like, ooh, Night Haunter might not be dead. That's saucy. World Eaters, if you add 1 to your Warlord's attack and strength characteristic each time you slay an enemy character, monster, or Titanic model. And Warlord Bears, voice of Logar, increase the range of any aura abilities on your Warlord's datasheet, e.g. Lord of Chaos or Demagogue by 3. So that could come in handy depending on what you're trying to do. And then the normal ones over here, you got Internal Vendetta, Flames of Spite, Unholy Fortitude, Hatred Incarnate, Lord of Terror, and Exalted Champion. Exalted Champion, add 1 to your Warlord's attacks. Lord of Terror, the opposing player must roll an extra dice when taking morale for every unit within 6 of your Warlord and use the higher result. So you might be getting some break wounds right there, hopefully, or break models rather. Hatred Incarnate, you can reroll wound rolls of 1 as attacks made by your Warlord. I can see a lot of people taking that one. Add 1 to your wound characteristic of your Warlord. In addition, roll a die each time he loses a wound. On a 6, your Warlord shrugs off the damage, does not lose the wound. Unholy Fortitude, you could also see some people taking that one as well. Flames of Spite, if the wound roll for the melee weapon attack made by your Warlord is 6, it inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any other damage. And Eternal Vendetta, you can reroll failed wound rolls for attacks made by your Warlord in the fight phase against targets with the Adeptus Astartes keyword. Dun dun dun. And here's the point values. Here's what's changed. Lots of stuff actually. Kind of a decent amount, and a lot of it for the better, right? So you've got Bikes went down 6 points. We kind of already knew that. Cultists went down a point. Lord and Terminator went down a point. Predators went down a point, but we kind of already knew that. Same with Vindicators. The Defiler definitely went down in points by about 60-ish. The Lord of Skulls went down 100 points. So he's a little bit more effective now, perhaps. It's hard to say exactly because all of his weapons and things are extremely expensive over here, like the Icar Cannon or the Hades Gatling Gun for 184. Mauler Fiend went down 10 points roughly. Mutilators went down. Noise Marines went down. Plague Bears went down. Abaddon the Despoiler also went down. Cardinal of Betrayer went down. The Demons went down. Pairs of Brimstones went up. Pancors went down. And Plague Bears also went down. So Brimstone Horrors to be expected. They are in a lot of people's lists out there, right? Bale Flamer, for all you Helldrake fans, went down 30 points. Blastmaster went down 8 points. Reaper Autocannon, a respectable 15 points. Hellforged Sword went down a lot. I don't even know what that goes on, and I forgot to look it up, but if you do know, drop it in the comments. Lightning Claws also went kind of down. So a pair went down to 12, but a single went up to 9. So you don't always get what you want there, I guess. The Plague Sword went down to a point, and the Power Fist also, I guess, went down from 20 to 12. And then there's the tactical objectives right there. So overall, I think this is a pretty good book, and it is chock full of amazing content, from the fluff from Horus Heresy to the Great Crusade and things like that. All the Renegade Astartes chapters, and it's just so rich, and it's everything that the Chaos players have kind of been waiting for. However, we're not sure on the rules yet. It's kind of too early to tell, like, what's OP, what's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, I think it has a fighting chance to be competitive. There's a ton of different combos and things in here that we're seeing with the stratagems. But does anything just like jump right out at me? No, not necessarily. I mean, I see a lot of play with the 2-up save from the fleshy exoskeleton, and I can see some multiple spam and some psychic powers doing well, but I think most of the list are still going to revolve around taking multiples of something that is indeed effective and kind of throwing the rest of things in it. But as a fluffy player in a narrative kind of type thing, I think this is perfect for the majority of the customers out there at Games Workshop that don't give an F about how competitive something is. I just want to play with my toys on the table and know that I'm going to have just as good of a chance against somebody else that is playing with his toys on the table as well. So if that's the case, then I think this is a slam dunk kind of a book. It was very easy to get through once again, very super simple to break down and kind of come to terms with all of it. And of course, if you're going to pick up the data cards and everything, you might want to throw that extra $15 at it just to help you have those game aids on the tabletop to help you in all your games, or remember all your stratagems and all your different options out there. Now, if you like our features here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to us and turn notifications on so you can be the very first to like and comment on our videos here. And head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.